Hello, my name is Jack, and I want to talk about something that I know many of you struggle with, speaking English. I've been there, feeling frustrated, embarrassed, and sometimes even hopeless. The words are in your mind, but when it's time to say them out loud, it's like your brain freezes, and nothing comes out. Or worse, you start speaking, but you stumble, hesitate, or use the wrong words, and then you just want to stop talking altogether. If this sounds like you, don't worry. You're not alone. I was in the exact same situation not too long ago. Let me start by sharing my story. Growing up, I never thought learning English would be such an important part of my life. I used to admire people who spoke English fluently. They sounded so confident and smart. But for me, it felt like a distant dream. I had basic English knowledge from school, but speaking, that was a whole different challenge. Whenever I tried to talk to someone in English, I'd freeze or mix up words. I felt like people were judging me, and that fear of making mistakes kept holding me back. But one day I realized something. If I don't face my fear and start practicing, I will never get better. No one is born speaking English fluently. It's a skill, and like any skill, it takes practice, patience, and persistence. That realization changed everything for me. I decided to stop letting fear control me and start taking small steps to improve my speaking skills. Today, I want to share the journey of how I overcame this struggle and how you can too. First, let's talk about why we get stuck while speaking English. The most common reason is fear. Fear of making mistakes. Fear of sounding silly, or fear of being judged. This fear is like a block in your mind that stops you from expressing yourself freely. But here's the truth. Making mistakes is a natural part of learning. Every fluent English speaker you see has made countless mistakes before they reach that level. So the first step is to accept that it's okay to mess up. Instead of focusing on perfection, focus on communication. The goal isn't to speak perfectly, it's to be understood. Another reason we get stuck is overthinking. Have you ever tried to form the perfect sentence in your head before saying it out loud? By the time you figure it out, the conversation has already moved on. This used to happen to me all the time. I realized that the key is to stop overthinking and just speak. Even if your sentence isn't perfect, most people will understand what you mean. And the more you practice, the better you'll get. Now, let me share some tips that helped me break free from this struggle. The first thing I did was surround myself with English. I started listening to English podcasts, watching English movies, and reading books out loud. Listening helped me get used to how native speakers talk, their tone, their rhythm, and their choice of words. Reading out loud helped me improve my pronunciation and confidence. I would pick a short paragraph and practice saying it until I felt comfortable. I also started keeping a journal where I'd write about my day in English. Writing helped me organize my thoughts and learn new words. And when I'd practice speaking, I'd use the sentences I wrote in my journal. This made it easier to express myself because I already had the words in my mind. Another thing that really helped was talking to myself. Yes, it might sound funny, but it works. I would stand in front of a mirror and pretend to have a conversation. This helped me get used to hearing my own voice in English and made me more comfortable with speaking. You can try it too. Pick a topic, like your favorite movie or your plans for the weekend, and just talk. It doesn't matter if no one is listening. The goal is to get used to speaking without hesitation. Finding a speaking partner was another game changer for me. I joined an online language exchange program where I could talk to native speakers. At first, I was nervous, but I quickly realized that they weren't judging me. They were actually very supportive and encouraging. Having real conversations helped me build confidence and improve my speaking skills faster than anything else. One of the most important lessons I learned is to be patient with myself. Learning to speak English fluently is a journey, and it takes time. There were days when I felt like I wasn't making any progress, but I reminded myself that every small step counts. Even if you learn just one new word or practice speaking for 5 minutes, you're moving forward. Let me also share a little trick I learned for improving fluency. Slow down. When we try to speak too fast, we're more likely to stumble and make mistakes. Speaking slowly gives you time to think and pronounce words clearly. And remember, it's not about how fast you speak. It's about how clearly you communicate. Lastly, I want to talk about mindset. Learning to speak English fluently is as much about attitude as it is about practice. Believe in yourself and your ability to improve. Celebrate your progress, no matter how small it is. And don't compare yourself to others. Everyone learns at their own pace. To wrap up, I want to say this. If I can do it, you can too. I started as someone who was afraid to speak, but through practice, persistence, and a lot of patience, I became confident in my English skills. The journey wasn't always easy, but it was worth it. So take that first step and don't let fear hold you back. Speak, practice, make mistakes, and keep going. Remember, every word you say brings you closer to fluency. Chapter 2. Breaking the Silence. When I started my English journey, I quickly realized something important. No one was going to do the work for me. If I wanted to improve, I had to take responsibility for my learning. I remember sitting in my room one day, feeling frustrated because I couldn't even hold a basic conversation in English. But that day, I made a decision. I would speak English every single day, no matter how bad I was at it. At first, I was scared. I didn't want to embarrass myself or look foolish. But then I thought, what's the worst that can happen? Someone might laugh. So what? That little shift in my mindset gave me the courage to start practicing. My first attempt was with a simple phrase. I walked up to a friend and said, "How are you?" It was such a small sentence, but for me, it felt like climbing a mountain. And you know what? My friend smiled and responded in English. That small interaction gave me a huge boost of confidence. From that day on, I started looking for every opportunity to speak English. I'd practice with my classmates, my family, and even strangers. I would walk into shops and ask for things in English, even if I knew the shopkeeper didn't speak it fluently. Sometimes people laughed at my mistakes, but I didn't let it bother me. I knew that every mistake I made was teaching me something new. I also started joining English-speaking groups online. These were safe spaces where I could talk to people from all over the world without the fear of being judged. The first few conversations were awkward. I struggled to find the right words, and my sentences were full of pauses. But the more I practiced, the easier it became. One of the biggest challenges I faced was thinking in my native language. Every time I wanted to say something, I'd think of it in my language first, and then try to translate it into English. This slowed me down and made my sentences sound unnatural. To overcome this, I started thinking in English as much as I could. For example, when I woke up in the morning, I'd think, I need to brush my teeth, instead of thinking it in my native language. When I saw something interesting, like a tree or a building, I'd try to describe it in English, in my head. This habit helped me train my brain to process thoughts in English, and over time, it became natural. Another thing that helped me was listening to myself. I started recording my voice while speaking English. At first, it was strange to hear myself, and I noticed all my mistakes. But instead of feeling discouraged, I used those recordings to improve. I'd listen to them and ask myself, how can I say this better? Then I'd practice until I got it right. I also began setting small, achievable goals for myself. One week, I focused on improving my pronunciation of certain words. The next week, I worked on using more advanced vocabulary. These small goals kept me motivated and made my progress feel manageable. It wasn't always smooth sailing. There were days when I felt stuck, days when I thought I wasn't improving at all. But during those times, I reminded myself why I started. I wanted to speak English fluently, not just for myself, but to connect with people, explore opportunities, and feel confident in any situation. If you're in a similar place right now, let me tell you, it's okay to struggle. The important thing is to keep moving forward. Every small step you take brings you closer to your goal. Chapter 3: The Turning Point. One day, something incredible happened. I was having a conversation with a group of friends, and I realized I wasn't struggling anymore. The words were flowing naturally, and I was speaking with confidence. That moment felt like a breakthrough. All the hours of practice, all the mistakes, and all the effort had finally paid off. But this wasn't the end of my journey. It was just the beginning. Now that I could speak English confidently, I wanted to take it to the next level. I started focusing on expanding my vocabulary and improving my grammar. I discovered that reading books was one of the best ways to do this. I started with simple novels and short stories, and as my skills improved, I moved on to more complex texts. Reading not only taught me new words, it showed me how sentences were structured and how ideas were expressed. I also made it a point to watch English movies and TV shows. At first, I used subtitles to help me understand. But eventually, I started watching without them. This helped me pick up natural expressions and slang that textbooks don't teach. Another turning point for me was when I started thinking about my future. I realized that English was more than just a language. It was a tool that could open doors to new opportunities, whether it was studying abroad, landing a dream job, or traveling the world. English was the key to achieving my goals. This realization motivated me to work even harder. I started practicing public speaking in English, which was a completely new challenge for me. Standing in front of an audience and speaking a language I wasn't born into was intimidating. But it pushed me out of my comfort zone and helped me grow. Over time, I began to notice the changes in myself. I was no longer afraid to speak up in meetings or introduce myself to new people. I could confidently hold conversations with native speakers and even make jokes in English. But the most rewarding part of this journey was the connections I made. English allowed me to meet people from different cultures and backgrounds, and these interactions enriched my life in ways I never imagined. As I reflect on my journey, I want to leave you with this thought. Learning English is not just about speaking fluently, it's about growing as a person. Every word you learn, every sentence you speak, and every conversation you have is a step toward becoming a better version of yourself. So, if you're struggling right now, don't give up. Keep practicing, keep learning, and keep believing in yourself. Remember, every expert was once a beginner. Your journey might be difficult, but the rewards are worth it. Thank you for listening to my story and joining me on this incredible journey. Remember, learning English is not just about words and grammar. It's about growth, confidence, and connecting with the world. Every small step you take brings you closer to fluency. Keep practicing, stay motivated, and most importantly, believe in yourself. You've got this. And don't forget to subscribe to the Pro English Skills YouTube channel for more amazing videos, tips, and stories. Together, we can make your English learning journey an unforgettable adventure. Thank you, and see you in the next video.